You can't tell if you're reacting to a food until you remove it and then you add it back in a decent amount. Let me give you an example, right? So if you're consuming oats every single day for years, your body, what happens is, even if you're having a reaction that's developed to it, antibodies that have developed to these oats, you're not going to really notice it because it's being consumed so frequently that the immune system has become, out of defense, it does not produce and evoke a dramatic reaction because it's trying to cope with this thing. And you probably have residues from this food that are still left in your body. So you're not having these extreme obvious reactions, okay? But when you remove something like oats, like I've seen in clients, you remove it for, let's say, 2-3 months and then have it, a large amount of it over the course of a day or two, you'll start to see symptoms if you did have sensitivities. But you can't see these symptoms in the daily consumption of it. And often you just call these symptoms, daily life or your own personality. Like for me, for example, I was eating nuts and seeds every day, right? I was eating lots of nuts. I thought, oh, nuts are healthy. I'm eating nuts and fruit and stuff like that. And eventually I realized when I cut out the nuts that, I felt a little bit calmer, I felt a little bit better, but I didn't really notice what was happening until I tried to add nuts back in 2-3 months later. And all of a sudden I had a significant reaction. I started to have aggressiveness, a hyperreactivity. I couldn't stop moving. I felt like, uncomfortable in my own skin, and I realized, wow, I was eating these nuts every day for years and wondering why I'm so hyperactive, why I'm, always having my thoughts racing, why I'm always on the go, why, I'm aggressive, etc. I thought this was just kind of who I was. But in fact, it was often the foods I was eating every single day that were triggering me into this fight or flight state, into this chronic reactive state, So if you're eating things like oats, dairy, nuts, seeds, gluten, processed food, too much meat, things with additives or flavorings or spices in them a lot, if you're doing this, then you do need to do something called the elimination diet. This is going to be the most beneficial thing for you. If you remove these triggers and you focus on things like fruits, vegetables, rice, beans, potatoes, the things you really can't react to significantly, then you go ahead and build off those foods. And first start with your vegetables and your fruits, your rice and your potatoes. You start there. Build off those foods. Then you add the beans. Make sure you're okay with the beans. Then if you're doing okay there for about 2-3 weeks, then you start adding these other trigger foods, the other ones that are more likely to trigger you, like the eggs, the dairy, the nuts, the seeds, the gluten, the meat, the processed food, these things. You add them in like one every couple days and start to see, hey, if I add oats back in for 3 days, do I feel any different? Yeah, I got tingling on my skin. Yeah, I didn't sleep well. Yeah, I urinated a lot when I was at night, whatever. It must be the oats because it's the only thing you've changed, right? So this is how you're be able to identify if foods are really causing an issue or not. You have to be able to see if the food's causing an issue by removing the food and then adding it back in. And this is the only way to be able to truly tell if a food's causing you an issue. Now, if you are having a reaction to the food and you're like frustrated, man, I was eating this food for years. I love this food. You might need several months off. You might need a year off. You might need a couple years off. It just depends on how severe the reaction was to it. And you always got to realize if you're having a reaction to it now, then it is a high risk in the future that if you consume this food too frequently, that you could have another reaction. So you always got to be careful, but your foundational foods are always going to be your rice, your potatoes, your fruits, your vegetables, your beans, your lentils, etc. Those are always going to be the safest bet. Then you phase in the meats, you phase in the other foods. But the reality is you always got to remember the foods that didn't work with you at one point and be able to limit them and moderate them to some degree, not like restrain from them, but not overeat them on a consistent basis. So hopefully this helps you with food sensitivities, helps you understand a little bit more about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. My website's endsickness.org. Go there. I got hundreds of articles and videos. Thanks for watching.